About 70 odd percent of the total suicide is that of men. And these are underreported numbers.
On the outside, everything looks sorted. Good roles, strong careers, clear direction. But if you sit with them a little longer, there's a different layer that shows up. A certain weight, a kind of silence, and that's not the peaceful kind.
You are a performer from boardroom to bedroom. Behind the closed doors, we are all struggling. The profound sense of isolation.
The 3 P's that are very important: provide, protect, perform.
You're trained to be the architect of provision.
Anger is the only thing that you know. On the other hand, there is numbness. So there is nothing in between. They really don't understand what emotions really are and how to express them.
One man who's like 48, he said, I don't remember the last time I hugged my son. He said that I feel like a human ATM. People come to me when they need some kind of withdrawal, whether it is a money, whether idea, whether solutions, but no one makes a deposit, no one checks on me, how I am doing. Do we have a space wherein you could go and connect with your armor down?
This is a space for you to just be. You don't have to perform. Come as you are. You don't want to speak, don't speak.
No advice, no fixing, no impressing, just presence. Welcome to Career Shiv's podcast, Journey to the Future. Over the last few months, I've been noticing something. In every conversation with leaders, founders, even friends, on the outside, everything looks sorted. Good roles, strong careers, clear direction. But if you sit with them a little longer, there's a different layer that shows up. A certain weight, a kind of silence, and that's not the peaceful kind. The kind that comes from holding things way too long. I've seen this in people I work with. I've felt versions of this myself too. In fact, a lot of what I have been sitting with over the last few years ended up becoming the book, The Other Half of Success, which just went out to the world on the 18th of March. Because somewhere along the way, I realized we talk a lot about success, what it looks like from outside, but not enough about how it looks inside. And I've been asking this question to myself. Where do men actually go when things are not okay? Not to fix things, not to perform, just to be honest. Today's conversation sits right there. Because we are talking about 2 people who have been quietly building spaces for exactly this, Shiv Kumar and Srini Ramaswamy. Srini is a founder for Men's Circle India. Shiv is the advisor. They run Circle across cities, online, where men come together without roles, without titles, and for a change, without having to pretend that they have gotten all figured it out. Srini and Shiv, welcome to the show. How are you both doing?
Doing well, Gopal. Excited to be here. And by the way, congratulations on your book. Looking forward to grabbing a copy and, of course, getting it autographed by you.
Absolutely.
Excited for that as well. 2 good reasons we are here.
Absolutely. Shiv, welcome to the show as well.
Thank you so much, Gopal. And like Srini was rightly mentioning, congratulations. Writing a book, that is something that I've always wanted to do, but of course it never happens. Life happens, but I'm so happy to see folks I know who, write books, so on and so forth, and you're one of them. Congratulations again.
Thank you. So, you both talk about this, how to be strong, successful outside, but silently carrying whatever you have inside without really being able to express things. I was in a workshop last week, and one of the things that I asked them was to express themselves. And I asked them, how do they feel? At max, 2 or 3 reactions came in. Good, great, and okay. And then I showed them the feelings wheel, which has, the amount of, feelings that one can even count. And they were like, wow, we didn't even know that feelings like these exist, and we didn't know how to express them. So let me start with you, Srini. When did this first become real to you? What was the trigger to start this men's circle? If you can go back on that journey.
Oh yeah, as we were preparing for this podcast, and Shiv and I, we were talking about it, saying that it can't be serial than this because we celebrate our first anniversary, and it was on the 14th of March. I
Oh,
said,
wow.
timing wise, it couldn't have been better, and we didn't prepare for this like you were sharing that we planned it in November and we wanted to do the conversation, and I think universe had its own way to say that okay, no, we will do when you guys complete 1 year. So very excited to sort of reflect on that journey last 12 months. And also to your question, a lot of that also came in from my own reflection of my own journey, where I was, between the life of a corporate HR guy transitioning to the and wearing a hat of a social entrepreneur in 2018 and just being building that entities. It was never easy. Perhaps I could pick a thing or two in terms of their own life experiences who are like in the 40s club, and and I was very clear, like I don't want to go for a workshop, I don't want to go for a retreat, I don't want to sort of go for these conference and for the sake of it exchange business cards and just make another LinkedIn connection. you know I said, do we have a space wherein you could go and connect and you can chat with your armor down.
Yeah.
And we, Shiv and I, we have known each other, for over 2.5 decades, like I think 2 decades. And we've been at it, similar backgrounds, HR. We kept talking about, hey, do you know a space like this? Can we go to that space? And we realized there was nothing. You may find that in developed nations outside, maybe a UK, Europe, US, but nothing in India. The closest that you can get it, hey, come for a 4-day retreat.
Yeah.
Come for a workshop, to be a better man. But there is nothing like, which sort of lets you in a non-workshop format. And that was I think the starting point for, both of us, Shiv and myself, in terms of what is that we want to create and build, wherein the during my career I've seen, like you were initially, in the initial opening remarks that you were talking about men. I have seen men around me, my colleagues, my cousins and my friends and etc., including myself. We were we were literally crushing it when it comes to societal metrics, so we say, right? Like your title, your
Yeah.
salaries or your travel, your car, and the house. But behind the closed doors, we are all struggling. The profound sense of isolation. You are a performer from boardroom to bedroom. Sort of you're trained to be the architect of provision.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think that was the starting point for us to say that okay, can we start having these spaces, which began in Bangalore, and then it led to creating those spaces across India. And now when you speak to men, it's no longer that men have said that I am exhausted. You have space that they can say I'm exhausted. This is a space wherein you go beyond your utility because you're provided. It's a utility service to more of an identity. It's like you're a human being first, performer next. So I think
Next. Yeah.
those were my initial thoughts, and the paradox of masculinity, I think, was the starting point to break that and create those spaces.
Wonderful. Shiv, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I
How
think
did this journey happen?
Yeah, I mean, Srini's covered, a lot of it. And, just to add, when we were discussing about, okay, I mean, are there platforms, I mean, are there areas that men could go and speak about? I mean, there were only problems and problems, but I think, then we decided that, okay, why not, be a part of the solution, than look for a solution, because solutions didn't exist. And then we were like, okay, let's create a solution rather than trying to look for one. But adding to what Srini was mentioning, from his past experience, in my role, I interact with a lot of senior leaders, like a lot of them. And one thing that I see is, there are patterns. They have stable careers. They are financially very successful, so to say. They hold these titles, which gives them this ego boost in many ways. But if you were to strip all that off and then ask them questions at a very, very personal level, they would speak about, let's say, exhaustion, to Srini's point, right? Loneliness, emotional numbness as well, because they don't know, to the point that you were making about the emotions wheel. They really don't understand, what emotions really are and how to express them, because we never taught them. I think that's one point. Going one step further, numbers. When we look at the broader picture, the data is actually very, very alarming, because today when we look at the number of suicide rate, about 70 odd percent of the total suicide is that of men. And when that number is something that you take and pause and just listen to those numbers, then you're like, oh my God, we never thought about it this way. And these are underreported numbers because nobody speaks about, I would say, suicide of men. So in many ways, I would say, this is underreported. So again, the point, going back to suicide, is why does that happen? Because people don't speak about loneliness. People don't speak about exhaustion, because we've been taught that, okay, fine, that is not murd enough to speak about these things. And that is the overall challenge. So I think that is where the whole conversation began. And, that's when we said, okay, fine, let's do something. Let's see, whether there'll be an uptake of it. And today, like Srini was mentioning, we're very happy to see, where this has landed and the fact that it is resonating.
Very rightly said, and really appreciate that. And I'm an ally myself. I contribute a lot to causes that, in whatever form, small way that I can, I do, be it with coaching, be it with mentoring, be it giving talks. And at the end of the day, this whole thing about, versus is, I guess, grossly overplayed. And I think we also, an initiative like this also then gives us an opportunity to correct some parts of it as well. The fact that we end up growing up with a lot of things that we have been told as part of societal conditioning, be it boys don't cry, boys don't wear this, boys don't speak like this. As you grow from being a 7-year-old to a 14-year-old, you start realizing the changes in your own body, and then start looking at things very differently from another gender standpoint. But no one is hand-holding you at that point of time to tell you how to take care of these differences, which then creates a conditioning problem. And again, the deep-rooted beliefs that you work with, ki mard ko dard nahi hota, mard nahi rote, etc., continues to grow further, and we end up creating a problem out of it, because just that we haven't really taught men well enough about how to treat themselves first and people in general around them. And it could mean their mothers, their sisters, their friends, their girlfriends, their wives eventually. I keep asking some of my friends, and sometimes even my mother, the kind of serials she would be watching, why do you watch this, right? But coming back to the point, one of the things that I grew up watching was my dad, right? And he worked for an organization which was an automotive company, which unfortunately shut down in the 90s. So from the period of, the 1992 to 2003, he was a cashier cum accounts manager there, and he had to ensure that everybody's accounts were settled, and which meant that he couldn't come out of the organization, but didn't need to go to work every day as well. So partially, some days he would be sitting at home, some days he would go, some days some settlement or some court matters. And that 10, 11 years was so hard on him that he rarely spoke about this to us. he might be speaking about this to some of his friends, but again, there was no reason for empathizing, because at that point of time, people felt like, oh, this bad thing happened to me, and maybe this is God's wish. And the whole narrative continued, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have mechanisms at that point of time to address conversations like these. But even in 2026, when I see people struggling with similar challenges, it really, I mean, aches me to see how we haven't still resolved some of these problems. And that's why this conversation becomes even more important today. What kind of conversations have you had with people who have been part of these men's circle? And how it has helped them, if at all, during the course of last 1 year?
Gopal, thank you for sharing, about your dad. But I think, what we are experiencing right now through Men's Circle is actually not different. So there are many things that come up. To the example that you just shared, that okay, fine, there were no places back then, but trust me, even if there is a men's circle right now, how many people make use of that space is a fantastic question for us to answer. So I think answering your question in terms of what are we seeing, we are seeing multiple things. One is, I love your analogy about, cereal, so on and so forth. But I want to go back to Amitabh Bachchan, who gave us only, that angry young man syndrome of sorts. And that's the only thing that men know how to express. And that is very scary, because if anger is the only thing that okay, on one hand, there is anger, on the other hand, there is numbness. So there is nothing in between, because either you become so indifferent or you're showing it in terms of anger. And that's what we're experiencing as well. And the struggle is that they do not know how to name anything in between. And that's where it is. So let's say grief or shame or fear or loneliness. That's not mud enough for people to speak about. And I think that's where the challenges come in. And I also want to go back to what you spoke about again for a minute in terms of the emotions. As you're aware, if your audience goes up and looks it up on Google, it's beautiful. There are so many emotions that exist, but today we don't know. And that vocabulary is what is missing in us as men in general. We are not taught it. And of course, nobody needs to sit down and teach you. But then once you start expressing, that comes naturally to you. So we're seeing that as the biggest, I would say, challenge right now. And if you're able to address that in some way, I think that's a good start in my mind. Srini.
Look, if we were to look at where did it all start, like the whole masculinity piece, saying "Mard ko dard nahi hota," and it's been there for centuries. It's not that this is something that we see only happened in the last 2 decades. It's been going on for centuries. So my father has experienced a certain way that his father would have emoted or used that vocabulary. So it is my father, my father's father, my father's father. So has been cascaded down in terms of the definition of that emotion. So like we always say that, oh, men only know certain colors and shades of life, whether you see what they wear with this blue, black and gray. So the same is case with the emotions. It is blue, black and gray and nothing in between. That's why, if I were to wear, and this has happened with me, if I were to wear a pink shirt or a purple shirt, you're immediately called out saying, hey, are you sure? What are you wearing this? This does not suit you. So see, for instance, today I wore this mustard color, and we spoke about it. So somewhere this pattern has to break.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, our father, my father didn't have that luxury because masculinity is a privilege. Right. If my father was from a well-to-do family, had instead of service class, was a business person and was doing well, then you could outsource that job, delegate that work, and then make time to be that Raymond man, the complete man, who comes home, in that suit, spends time with the kids, spends time with the pets, cooks meal, spends time with the wife. But how many of the service class, our fathers and grandfathers could think about that? So you're not a complete man, right? So that is where, the whole idea about breaking it down, saying that, okay, somewhere this pattern has to break, somewhere this pattern of lone soldier narrative has to break. Men should stop feeling like emotional shock absorbers for the entire ecosystem of home, office. That's why you have a third space, which is our men's circle space, wherein you drop the guard, right? So how can I be a better parent, right? So that is the narrative, and that's where we are opening up this conversation. And that is where we say that you have to look beyond the provider. And the question that you asked about some of the examples that what we have heard. So when one of the sessions that Shiv and I we were doing at one of the corporates, during this listening circle we had, and this was for the CXO, one of the VP, after hearing and listening to almost about 50 odd minutes, he said that I feel like a human ATM. People come in to me to when they need some kind of withdrawal, whether it is a money, whether idea, whether solutions, whether motivation, but no one makes a deposit, no one checks on me how I am doing, right? So that the imposter syndrome of strength is the huge burden. But once you are in that circle, you know that we are having this conversation, you drop that guard, the mask, you're no longer seen as, okay, there's a title, no one asks you that,
Yeah.
right? And that's when the mask goes away, and then you are feeling in a safe space, a space wherein you can challenge and understand these vocabularies and words.
Very deep, but I also cannot forget the fact that when it comes to the invisible script that we all grow up with, and Shiv, you brought that up, and Srini, you also brought that up in terms of how we keep on saying that it's the three P's that are very important: provide, protect, perform. Every conversation between a father and son, or society, when it comes to expectations of the male child, when it comes to what is, like the famous quote in Three Idiots, right? Even before the kid is born, the decision has been made of what you need to do as you progress in life. Beta hua to engineer, beti hue to doctor, kind of a thing. Well, it's so deep rooted in the society that it becomes even harder when it comes to first even realizing that there is a problem. So the three P's, right? The provide, protect, perform, and it just doesn't end. We continue to talk about that, and it's so deep rooted in the society that we find it harder to change that conditioning problem. I'm sure that when you started this journey a year ago, you may not have had any specific numbers in mind that these many people should come up. I don't know what numbers you currently have of people coming in, but I'm guessing that these numbers will be much lower than what it ideally should be. How do we change this problem of addressing this narrative that, मर्द को भी दर्द होता है, and mard has to go and seek help, right? What are your thoughts? Like, how do you see that playing out in all the efforts and initiatives that you have been taking care of?
I think it's not going to be easy because, it's decades and decades of conditioning, what the society tells you, so on and so forth. I think first and foremost, when we started, of course, the numbers were like in single digits, and we were like, okay, we were also experimenting, whether men would be open to the idea of coming to such a space. But of course, the numbers look much better. But is it as good as what we would have expected it to be? The answer is a resounding no. We would expect much, much better. So what can we do? First and foremost, we can share with you what we do. One is that we assure them that it's going to be confidential because we don't record the sessions. There is no note taking, nothing. So whatever happens in that particular session remains in that particular session, and that's that. So that is going to be one important thing. The second agreement that we have in that session is about listening without interruption, because that's the very reason men are coming there. And most of the times, men are doing the listening, but nobody's there to listen to them, right? So is there a space where there is listening without interruption? That is the space that we provide. So we request men that please be active from a listening perspective, so on and so forth. So that's going to be the second thing that we provide. This other thing is, before I go to the third one, we love providing solutions. It just naturally comes to us, whether it is, a son who comes to you, or a colleague, or, somebody on the road. We just love providing solutions. But that's a big no-no when it comes to men's circle. Nobody's here to ask you for your advice. So it's a guideline that, no fixing, no unsolicited advice. And that is like one of the cardinal rules in the in the circle as such. So, the other one that we want to take away in terms of the pressure on men is to speak. If you don't wish to speak, it's okay, don't speak. There's always like 3 P's that we keep mentioning about, to perform is one of it. You don't have to perform. If you don't wish to speak, it's okay, just listen. And that silence is also respected. It is not that only when you speak and you're trying to sound very intelligent is when you gain respect. But if you're listening and you're silent, you're actually contributing to that space and holding that has been created. So that is another thing that we provide. And these are all very intentional agreements, I would say, in many ways, and people have been respecting all that. I think this is what we are providing. And is it helping? We see a lot of people who have attended multiple circles come back over and over again. So to us, that is a data point that it is working when people keep coming back and they go and speak about it to other folks that, hey, come and so through referrals, if the number of people are increasing, in my mind, it works. Now, is it easy? Does everybody speak? No. I mean, not everybody who comes to the circle speaks. Some of them take 2 circles, 3 circles before they even decide to, share anything about them or what they're experiencing. But in other cases, because that space is created and we're holding the space for them, it's the first circle itself where people come and start sharing.
I would add to Shiv's point in terms of going a step back, right? So because you were asking for data, one is that you said, perform, the 3 P's. I think the 4th P I want to add is permission. I have to give myself the permission to go to that space, right? As men, and I do this, I need to give a permission for every single thing. Like, for example, in the circle, somebody said that if I am taking my family out for shopping, I have to first think that, is it important for me to buy something for myself or should I buy it for my kids or my wife? Okay. So I put my priority or my well-being or my liking secondary. Right. So it reflects in the, for men who come to these spaces as well. Right. There are a lot of men who would register. We do a lot of social media shout out, in terms of how do we reach out. We do reach out to men through organic posts, of course, on Instagram and LinkedIn, where we are actively sort of engaging today. And over these years, over last 1 year, we've had over 600 men who have come, right? About 70% of them are between the age group of 35 and 44, like I said. 95% of them say, and this is part of a registration form, so I'm giving you some data from there. 95% of the men said they've never been to a space like that, or they have never sought any kind of a therapy or a professional help. We have had cases wherein in the registration form, there have been comments like, I am registering my father for this. A daughter had registered her father. So he came in, and this was in Delhi. He came in for the session saying that my daughter came across this, and I thought I'll come this and etc. 52-year-old man, right? So there are times when then we kind of think, and we become numb as men that acha jana hai kya? If I have to go, then the reason why we don't do online also is that a lot of men say that I don't want to take these calls from home because my family is going to ask me, what are you doing? Okay.
Wow.
The other thing is we don't give any printout materials for men to take back home because they'll say that my family and my wife is going to ask, where did you go? And I don't want to lie. A lot of men they lie at home saying, I'm going to meet my friend, and they come to men's circle. Right? Now, we have to go to the root cause. Why do men have to lie and come to the whole societal this thing? You expect your partner to be equally understanding to say that, my husband's well-being is also important. I would encourage him to go and participate and go to these spaces. But that's not happening. So imagine men have to even think about it. That's what we are, challenging, and that's what we want to change the norm and change the status quo.
I'm sure there are more stories which we will definitely want to talk about, but I want to share a reflection based on what you just both of you just said, right? If you really look at what is happening in day of life of a 35, 40-year-old man, and I'm sure it's no different for a woman. In fact, it could be a slightly more challenging for women if they have kids and all of that. But just to stay with the fact that we're talking about men, they are in their mid career. They have understood, or they have thought that this is what is the definition of career, title, success, money, fame. They're all glued to Instagram and social media to see how things are happening with other people around the world. So a vacation or a new car or a new mobile or a new whatever, right? So there is a constant pressure to do more, get more. Then most of us working in cities today have to commute to work. And none of the city, wherever you are in this world, is planned well enough for you to travel less than 30 minutes to reach office. Everybody, on an average, today spends about 3 to 5 hours on the road to reach office. And if you're in a city like Bangalore, it's even worse sometimes. Or if it's a long weekend, you don't need to talk about that. There are two conversations that I had just this week. One was this gentleman who works for an organization who says, I'm just not able to turn myself off and not think about work, right? I'm always on, right? I mean, even after I'm home, I will keep looking for mails, messages. So even while sleeping, there will be thoughts going on in my head about what should I respond to this message, etc. And the other was a group of people who said, we are constantly being shouted upon by people above us with absolutely no empathy for the work that we do. And there is no way that we can vent it out because the generation that is coming up, which is, I mean, to all credit of fantastic work that Gen Zs are doing, they have their boundaries clearly laid down. So they are not going to be doing the same things that we perhaps are doing who are in the millennial group. And the one word that comes to my mind as I explain both of this is a word called exhaustion. Fatigue. You're just not able to speak up. You're just not able to understand. And you continue going on. And eventually you hit a stage where you are not able to do anything about it. I'm sure in your men's circle, there are people who come who may have relationship problem. You spoke about that, Srini. People who have career problem. There are people who have health issues, not going anywhere because we're all not getting younger. And then you also have a new problem of, layoffs where people get laid off and they can't really speak about it at home. And I've heard about cases where, these people who are in their early 50s, after layoff, still leave office, still leave home every morning as if they're going to work, just because they fear that if the family gets to know that they have been laid off, it's worse, and they don't know how to respond to some of those. What are some of the themes? I mean, are these the themes that you hear in your men's circle as well? And what kind of support system mechanism are we able to offer to these people?
So our philosophy, Gopal, is we are not focusing on just one aspect of well-being, which is usually that you see is mental health or physical health, which largely gets the attention, obviously, because there have been a lot of studies around it, there have been a lot of conversations around it. So obviously, my immediate, you know, step forward is to focus on these two. But what we have been very conscious and very particular about and investing in our narrative is that we are looking at a holistic health and well-being for a man. The moment I talk about holistic health, it is including mental and physical health. We are looking at your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your occupational well-being, your financial well-being, your relationship well-being, your sexual well-being, and your purpose well-being. Right? I have saved enough. My kids are grown up. They are on their own. Now, what else do I do? So for them, it is again an aspect of purpose well-being. Hence, in these circles, what we do is based on the themes that we would see in the registration form. For example, if we are hosting a circle which we do every month in different cities, and second Saturday is Bangalore, and if somebody is signing up for that second Saturday in Bangalore, they would have filled the form, and we would aggregate that data to say that what are the top 4 or 5 themes that for this event men are looking for. So what one of the examples I'll share with you, few sessions back, we saw that the theme was on exactly to your point about my future, my career, and my occupational well-being and my financial well-being. I'm worried about AI. My job's going to go away. I'm 45 plus. I'm that part of the sandwich generation. I don't know enough of AI. I am not there still wherein I've saved enough. So what do I do? So we held a conversation and with a sort of, an assessment, do it yourself assessment and sort of a questionnaire about understanding through a score as to where you are in your occupational well-being and your financial well-being. And then with certain recommendations and a toolkit that one could follow, say that, okay, this is my 3 months plan. And then we mapped it to our ecosystem partners. So each of our well-being area, we have an ecosystem partner about 2 3 organizations. Like for example, if somebody is asking for financial well-being, we have about three to four ecosystem partners who come with an expertise about helping you with your financial goals. So we provide that platform wherein men can come and understand what it is and then decide that, okay, now that we have discussed, I think I need professional help here. And that's where we connect our ecosystem partners to these men, whether they're looking at legal support, whether they're looking at financial support, whether they're looking at, okay, I'm scared about, AI taking over my job and etc. Then we bring in those experts, right? And on that point, there is an organization called Sapien Labs which did a study in 2025 and the report was out in 2026. The crux of that study specifically, they did pan India, over 1 million responses across 84 countries, India being one of that. And in that, it was identified, or it was sort of published, that the young Indians between the age group of 18 to 34 are totally distressed and highest number compared to the older generation in India, which means that when you look at comparing the younger generation across 84 nations, we rank 60th.
Wow.
Okay. And when you look at the older generation, the scores are much better because we are not sort of taken to a phone. We still build into the social connections. We still are connected to relationship, family, spirituality, and etc. So we are looking at sort of investing in those kind of conversations, saying that, okay, as a parent, when you see your young kids or your younger ones in your family, how can you enable that and build that connection, bridge that connection gap, in terms of what can we provide you in terms of EAP, and measuring that, 85% of the companies in India today has an EAP service provider. Less than 5% of that service is availed by men. So imagine, and again, coming to a point of permission, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. What if people get to know? Log kya kahenge?
Just extending, to what Srini was mentioning in terms of, physical health. So one statistic that actually stays with me is, men are like 24% less likely to seek preventive health checks, the health checks that we do on a regular basis, and 50% less likely to seek medical attention when required. So if you look at it, to Srini's point about permission, we don't give ourselves permission to take care of our health itself. So it's not that somebody's telling us not to take care of our health, but it's just that we don't give ourselves permission to take care of our health. And that's alarming, because then there is this additional layer of provider, then the protector, but I'm not taking care of my health. Health is like holistic health, if I may say so. So all these, combined together is a bigger problem that we are speaking about. And that is just a ticking time bomb. And of course, numbers are great. It gives us, talking points, I would say. But there are so many things which are underreported right now. These are only through, sample size. And it gets worse when we speak about, the rural population. Urban, folks still have access to information. That is one point. I just want to go back a little bit in terms of, like two instances which tie back to what Srini was mentioning that happened in, the circle. One is about domestic abuse, for example, right? So people do not speak about domestic abuse that men experience as well. And of course, we don't see those numbers as well, because it is not manly enough to say that there is domestic abuse that the individual experienced. So that is one part of it. And I remember another incident where this individual was speaking about the fact that he wants to start a family but is unable to start a family for whatever reasons. Right now, that is a big burden that the individual is carrying in his heart because of something that's not working for him. Right. So now that is a big burden. He cannot speak with his wife. He cannot certainly speak with his parents. His friends will make fun of him. Right. So there are these things that men speak about in these spaces, and they feel better that at least, there is somebody who's listening to, may not be able to provide a solution, which is perfectly fine, but at least I'm able to speak about it, articulate it, put it into words so that, I walk out of that room feeling lighter. And that's where what Srini was mentioning comes into the picture in terms of our ecosystem partners. It's not that you just came in, spoke about it, felt good, and the moment you walk out, you are again met with this society, and the burden continues. So that's where our ecosystem partners come into the picture, and they're doing a fantastic job of helping us in this particular journey. So I just want to say the same again, to your audience, that there are experts. There are folks who are there to help you. Don't think that it's just me and me. And of course, we don't have the credentials for everything. Certainly, you shouldn't expect that either. But then, yes, we do have a large force that is there behind us to help everybody.
I was reflecting on what Shiv was saying, and also got reminded of the conversations that I recently had with a couple of my friends. And, one has been having health related issues for a long time with obesity. And whenever there is obesity, which is slightly uncontrolled, there are underlying reasons for it. Of course, there were challenges with regards to some of the emotional aspects in his life as well. And my conversation with him kept going back and forth about him needing to seek help. And he kept saying that, I have you who could help me with that. And again, going back to the point of I'm no expert, right? Forget about people who are on their own. When the company is giving them an annual health checkup, you would not schedule for it and you would not know. So, knowing yourself, your body, your emotional quotient becomes a challenge, right? What advice, if at all, would you want to give to these people, both from a men's circle standpoint and even in general, about why is it important for them to seek help?
I think, first and foremost, this is the way I look at it. And that is, of course, if there's a provider, there's a protector syndrome that all of us, suffer with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It won't go away tomorrow. But if you are a protector, if you are a provider and you've intentionally taken on that role, you need to be, let's say, healthy, both physically, emotionally, and whatever the other areas are. You need to be healthy in all these areas for you to be an effective provider and protector. But if you're not going to take care of yourself, then you're doing disservice to everybody around. And when I say everybody around, it could be your family, it could be your teams, it could be your friends around, because you'll be cranky most of the times. So I think that is not being selfish. It is actually in the service of the others as much as it is in the service of yourself. So I think that is going to be, one very, very important thing. So if you are not going to, take care of yourself when something is coming to you on a silver platter, I wonder what else is required for you to take care of yourself. But then I would also challenge everybody around, like if you have men in your life, it could be your partner, it could be wife, whatever, doesn't really matter. Have you challenged the man in your life that, okay, you haven't gone in for a health checkup in the last 1 year, let me take you. Right. And I think it is a two-way street. Of course, the man also needs to do the same, and the partner also needs to do the same.
Yeah.
So I think that is a responsibility of self and of the others as well. So I think it's a two-way street in my mind, Gopal.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you really look at it from that perspective, I don't remember too when did I hug my dad, but I make it a point that I hug my son very frequently. And there is famous, belief system that we all live with, that men are not great huggers, which we have to change as well.
When we speak about like physical intimacy, men always equate it with sex. And that is and this was, something that came up in one of the webinars, because intimacy can can result in sex, but then is intimacy only sex? Is it only like in the physical need that is being? So I think somewhere we need to also understand that intimacy is more than it. Intimacy can be, of course, between partners, but then it can be between, let's say colleagues. It can be with team. That those are called intimate conversations, and that is again something that has been so conditioned to think about it that way, that the word intimacy has taken a different definition altogether. And then we stay away from it as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I hope after listening to this conversation, people are able to redefine intimacy for themselves and others as well. Moving forward, I think we have covered quite a few aspects that might have challenged a lot of notions that people may have been carrying. But let's look a little further, future, right? If you were to both think about 10 years from now and the journey that would have happened through Men's Circle, what would you say would be a redefined definition of masculinity?
It's a very interesting question, and Shiv and I, we have deliberated over this a lot. Even before we sort of formally registered the organization as a for-profit entity. Look, for my vision for the next sort of decade is for Indian men to move from the stoic isolation to relational integrity. Right? I want men to move from performance-based masculinity to purpose-based masculinity. What is the purpose? I think it is little deeper. And, somewhere, and we discussed this, Shiv and I, last year when we were, I said, 5 years, 10 years down the line, if a young man in an IT company, let's say in Hyderabad, because that's where we see all the news these days on GCCs, and a young man
Yes.
in IT park in Hyderabad or a startup in Delhi feels that, gets up from his desk and say, I'm going to men's circle session today to decompress, he should get that encouragement without having to go through that feeling of shame, hiding my face and going for these sessions, because we are building the future where Indian men are defined by depth and character and the quality of relationship, not the size of the balance sheets and the bank accounts they have. I think that's what my
Beautiful.
my 10 year sort of vision would be.
I can't do better than what Srini just shared. I just, want to add a teeny tiny bit over there. And that is, when we think about masculinity, we forget that there is femininity in masculinity and vice versa. Uh, and I think masculinity does not take away from femininity, and femininity does not take away from masculinity. And I think in everything what Srini mentioned, plus this, would be my 10-year vision, that we adopt both, and then also embrace both elements of it, and not just assume that masculinity has a definition without femininity and vice versa. So I think that is my vision for the society.
Lovely. Let's quickly do a rapid fire, and it's typically quick, short answers to some of the words that may come to our mind or the myths that we carry. So, one word for the biggest shift you have seen in a man after a few circles. This one's for you, Srini.
I would say lighter.
Lighter. Okay. Okay. What's the most common sentence men say when they enter, and what do they say when they leave? Shiv.
Okay. So I think in my mind, when they arrive, it is, I don't know why I'm here and what am I supposed to do. I think that
Right.
confusion remains. I think when they leave, it's mostly about, I did not realize how much I was carrying. And, to the point that, Srini was making that relief that, I mean, I have, I feel better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. One myth about men and emotions you're tired of hearing, Srini.
The vulnerability is a lack of control. In reality, is the to me, it's an ultimate form of self mastery. That's what common myth, masculinity, and I'll keep a vulnerability, because that's what Shiv mentioned about the embracing the feminine and masculine side. So that starts with the core of vulnerability.
Beautiful. One personal practice that keeps you grounded, Shiv.
So one thing that I'm practicing right now over and over again is to label what I'm feeling. Label, what, and people have a bad thing about labels. They think labeling is bad, but trust me, it's good. At
Yeah.
least I know what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. So it'll be label shamelessly. It's fine.
Lovely.
Can I also add that, Gopal?
Yeah, yeah,
I know
sure,
you're
sure,
doing
sure.
rapid. For me, that practice I'm doing is breath work and check-ins. Right? I ask myself, like, every day morning, Srini, how are you feeling today? Because no one's going to ask me that. I have
Yeah.
to ask that.
Wow.
So I have started practicing it ever since we've started men's circle, because we go in with facilitating and we end up learning. I end up learning so much. So that's something that I have been practicing
Yeah.
for a year now.
Beautiful. I completely agree about the fact that we end up learning a lot through facilitation. So, absolutely. Andropause, in simpler terms, that could be either of you.
He spoke about the intimacy.
So I would say, andropause, nothing to be ashamed of. It is, it is bodily, And it is perfectly fine. It is again going back to the fact that, I am feeling the way I'm feeling owing to. It could be andropause as, one of the things. So it's perfectly fine to, go ahead and, speak about it. And if you require any kind of support, please go ahead and get the support. It's okay.
Yeah. And believe me, a lot of people may not even know what andropause is. So I guess by listening to this, maybe quite a few AI searches are going to begin to understand what that is all about and how do you feel about it. And how do you recognize that you may be experiencing that in your life as well? One last question, again, to both of you. If every man in India experienced one circle, what would change?
Interesting. Yeah, Shiv, you want to take it? I'm still reflecting on that. It's a very
I can take that. So for me, in my mind, it is going to be that they're not alone in the struggle. And that is going to be something that I've heard often, because when people walk into the circle, they think that, it's me problem, which is fine. But then that they're not alone. They have a community that they can speak with. And of course, we will find solutions together. We may not have solutions. That's okay. But we are not alone.
Any parting thoughts, comments, or any guidelines or directions for people to reach out, know more about what you both do through the men's circle, that could be beneficial for people?
Yeah. No, thank you for that. We can be followed on Instagram and in LinkedIn. Our page is Men's Circle India. We keep posting about different thoughts, suggestions, even including when the next Men's Circle session will be. So if anyone who's comfortable following us on LinkedIn or Instagram, we are on these two platforms. And you can follow Shiv and me, both of us. We are active on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to reach out to us, anyone can reach out to us. We are very much
Wonderful. Anything, Shiv, from you?
No, I think, Srini's covered all of it. I would just encourage your audience to come and experience the circle once, because that the proof of pudding is in eating it. So please come experience the circle, see whether it makes a difference, and then help us spread the word. And Gopal, thank you so much for helping us spread the word, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, this one needed to be done because, and it was long due. But I'm sure when this episode goes out and people listen to it, they would find answers to some of the questions that they have been keeping in their minds, perhaps answers to questions that they didn't even know that they wanted to ask. Thank you both, Srini, Shiv. Wonderful having you both here. Kudos to all the work that you both have been doing through Men's Circle. We need more circles like these. We need more people, more men to come in and experience some of these conversations, to believe that it is okay sometimes not to be okay. It is okay to speak up. It is okay to feel the way you feel. It's not only about strength, it's also about understanding the true definition of strength. The strength is not that you also always have to hold everything together. Strength also is about letting go, letting go of roles sometimes, of the pressure that you need to have all the answer, or of even the need to appear okay. So Srini and Shiv, thank you again for doing this work. More importantly, for holding these spaces. You can check out for Men's Circle India on social platforms as shared by both Shiv and Srini. They have circles across cities and some also online. And if you choose to show up as you are, not as you think you're supposed to be, not at all in any other form that you would like it to be. This episode also comes as a personal moment for me. As I shared earlier, my book, The Other Half of Success, is live now on Amazon. Find it, buy it, read it, share more about it. Again, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. share some of the moments that you liked about the book as well. And in many ways, it's also asking the same question: what sits beneath everything that looks successful? Thank you for listening, staying through the conversation, and for giving this space your attention. Stay rooted, stay honest, and keep shifting. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much.